Alright guys, what's up? Welcome to the next episode of Totem Talks. I'm one of your co-hosts, Osu, and obviously you all know my other co-host, Rhaz.
Hello.
I know we got some new people here. If you guys are new to the channel, this is our Dead by Daylight podcast. We talk about different subjects. Basically, people throw to us or what we find interesting on DBD Twitter and things like that. If you don't know who I am, a little bit about me. My name's Osu. I'm a Dead by Daylight content creator on YouTube and Twitch. I am actually a killer main. I do play quite a bit of Survivor at the same time, though, but I'm a Deathslinger main. He's my main go-to dude. I've been playing this game for about 3 years. I have like 3,000 hours. Played a little bit of comp. So that's a little bit about me, if this is your first time being here.
And kind of in the same vein, Osu and I are both killer mains. I've actually played Dead by Daylight since 2016. I've seen literally every iteration of the game, but I took some extended breaks in there, so I'm only about 4,000 hours. Roughly 50-50 split killer survivor, but definitely more of a killer main now. I've also participated in some tournaments, done some speedruns and fun things like that, and I guess now I can call myself a content creator since I started my YouTube channel as well, so...
Yeah, guys, I dropped that link in chat earlier while we were on our starting soon screen. All Totem Talks episodes are going to be uploaded on Rhaz's channel, starting with episode 3. That's going to be uploaded Wednesday, and Rhaz is planning to have episode 4 uploaded Friday. If you guys weren't here for those live streams, episode 3 we talked about what is going to be the upcoming killer meta for every single killer. We went down the entire roster. And then episode 4 we talked about the survivor metas. What perks are really going to start shining and be in like the new meta coming out. So if you missed those, go check out that link, !Rhaz in the chat, and turn on the notification bell so you can see when those episodes drop on Wednesday and Friday. Other than that, guys, the topics we have today, we have quite a few. There's been a lot of chatter going on about Nurse and really what, like, is Nurse overpowered and etc. There's like a video that went viral on DBD Twitter, and we're going to show it here today. And we're going to kind of take some of mine and Rhaz's experience in the game and really kind of talk about Nurse as a whole and really what our opinions are. Now, here's the thing. Me and Rhaz, we don't really talk about a lot of this before streams. So we kind of like to see where each other's ideas are, like, in the stream, because who knows, we might differ at something. Then after Nurse, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about really the survivor to killer mentality. There's a lot of talk going on about survivors DCing, killers playing toxic, and things like that. And then lastly, a new topic that we discovered this weekend. We're going to talk about the Bloodweb grind and my opinion versus Rhaz's opinion. So for the first time, you guys are going to see me and Rhaz have different opinions on something. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
Before we dive into that, guys, if you're new here, we do have segments. And we're going to go to our first segment, which is Totem Trivia, hosted by Rhaz. So hold on, and let's see just how smart you are when it comes to Dead by Daylight.
Alright guys, so if you've never been here before, Totem Trivia is basically, I rack my brain for things that I can think about that are from so long ago in DBD's history that it would be amazing if people knew them off the top of their heads. And so I like to rack my brain, find something like that, and see who can guess what right. So for this week, our question is about Shadowborn. So Shadowborn has remained relatively the same ever since it came out, but it did have a downside at one point. So what was the downside? So was it A, you could be blinded faster and for longer? Was it B, your view on screen was darker? Is it C, if you had aura reading perks, their duration was reduced? Or is it D, your red stain was larger if you had Shadowborn equipped? So we'll give you guys the whole stream to think about it, see if you can find it, maybe on Google. I'm not giving you any hints, but...
Alright, our first topic today is going to be about Nurse. Basically, there was a viral video that went out where a Nurse got 4 downs in a matter of 45 seconds of the game starting. This created a huge discussion on, is Nurse overpowered, should Nurse be nerfed, etc, etc, and people were already starting to go that route before this video leaked. But what we're going to do is, one, we're going to show you the video, and get what your opinion is. And then from there, we'll see what we have to say about it. So let me get this video pulled up for you guys. So here's the video in question, and you guys watch and enjoy.
I will say they totally spoiled the surprise with that countdown timer in the top right.
They really did. And this player is actually a pretty good nurse, too.
Yeah.
Ooh. That was really good. Ooh. Alright, so we're gonna watch that back. Because I know there's a few things me and Rhaz want to talk about here.
This is just this is a skill issue, man. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Just get good.
just play better, man. Just play better.
Yep.
This right here is where it all begins. Alright?
Yeah.
So the thing is, the build that this nurse is running is designed for exactly what's about to happen. You have to think how, like, everyone's saying that nurse is insanely overpowered because she was able to do this. She was only able to do this because of the pure chance that Haunted Grounds broke. She had Hex Retribution with double range, with every survivor clustered up together. So there's two ways you can look at this video. You can look at it as, yeah, nurse is overpowered, she shouldn't be able to do that. Or you look at it as, did these survivors really make a good play? Because if I'm going against a nurse and somebody breaks Haunted Grounds, I'm GTFing. I'm getting out of there. You know, I'm not going to stay there. But this is where it all starts to fall apart.
And this, I will say, this whole kind of clip just really catches me off guard because you get this haunted ground breaking and these survivors don't go anywhere. They start walking.
Yeah, they just stay there.
Even if you don't know that she has retribution, if you're not on comms and you didn't find out that, you know, whoever broke it got the retribution effect, as soon as something like haunted ground pops, you have a third-person camera. You can see her. Get away.
Yeah.
Like...
and that's the thing, like, you see here, right? So, one, they broke Haunted Ground. And then they broke Undying. Because I'm pretty sure it's Undying. No, they broke Undying, then they broke Haunted Grounds. So, they got two Haunted Ground procs at the same time, right? That's what this explosion here is. But Hex Retribution gives you a total of 15 seconds. That's a long time to see somebody's aura. And honestly, this nurse is not amateur. This nurse is a good nurse. I can tell you right now, like, if I was playing nurse, I wouldn't be able to pull this off.
Yeah, I wouldn't get this.
I would mess this up way too much. And, like, this guy behind the rock, he's just...
Yeah, these two together.
Yeah, she was standing still and he's just crouched. Like, she barely had to blink for that one. Like...
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of discussion about this, and it's generally, like, one of those things, like, is Nurse powerful? Yes, but this wasn't a product of Nurse being overpowered. This was a product of the combination of Retribution and Haunted Grounds. Technically, there's a lot of killers that could pull this off, especially with survivors that stay grouped up. Hell, I could do it with Deathslinger if I had the perfect circumstances like this.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Falcon, this build is full Hex Totems, right? So she has occupied all 5 Hex Totem spots with this build because we have Ruin, Retribution, Undying, and then 2 from Haunted. Realistically, there's a 40% chance that this happens because only 2 of your totems are Haunted Ground. So you have to be unlucky enough to get one of those 2 Haunted Ground rather than any of the other 3 totems first.
Yeah, and if they had broke Ruin at the beginning, you wouldn't even have this clip.
Yeah. And if it, you take that 40% chance of them breaking a haunted ground totem, and then how often are you going to find survivors like this who cluster up and really just kind of stand there and wait to die?
And the thing is, like, you're asking, like, how likely is it to happen in most matches? That's actually a really good question. The chances of it happening in most matches are actually pretty slim. And I wanted to bring up another video from quite a while ago. Alright, so the video that I'm about to show you guys is, so this build is Scream Speedrun. The nurse speedrun is a world record that a lot of nurses have gone for. Super Alf, Dread, Tijuana, so many people have gone for breaking this record. The fastest record right now belongs to Sergio the Greek. And technically the clip you just saw at the beginning is faster, but I don't think they submitted it for the record. So I want you guys to watch this video, which was approximately 9 months ago, and let us know what you think.
And you'll notice this build is almost identical, except there's no undying. Just a bad timing.
That was a perfect timed Haunted Grounds break. And again, Survivor's just standing still when he has Retribution.
Which, again, if they're not on comms, they're not going to know that there's a Retribution.
Yeah.
But as soon as something like Haunted Grounds breaks, you need to be making distance between yourself and the killer. Doesn't matter who it is.
So, and the reason I'm showing you guys this, right, is because the question is, like, how often is this to happen? So far, these are the only 2 speed runs, or the only 2 videos that have been public where this has occurred. It literally is such a, like, random percentage chance that you get value out of Haunted Grounds breaking immediately at the beginning of the game, and all 4 survivors being next to each other. So it's like, now guaranteed you have to be a competent nurse to pull this off, but at the end of the day, like, when everyone was freaking out about it, everyone was just jumping, like, at nurse, but didn't really even look at the logic of the build. Like, Mr. Mustachio said it himself, like, the survivors were bad. They made some bad plays. So,
yeah, and I know this is pre 6.1 because, like you said, this is like 9 months ago, but I believe that other one that was posted is also pre 6.1. So they're running Ruin as the reason that survivors want to break these totems. Because I will tell you, if I spawn into a game and I spawn right next to a glowing totem, I don't go for it immediately until we can get a rough idea of what it might be. Because I don't want to risk something like this. But if that clip and Sergio's speedrun are the only 2 times where you've ever gotten early game, immediate, massive haunted ground value, this is not a consistent thing. And this, you'll see the other side. This is from my live stream yesterday with Osu. This is me just running a nurse around the map for like 8 or 9 minutes because this is a less experienced nurse who doesn't have something like Haunted Ground to carry, although she did have Devour Hope, but we got rid of it at this stage, I believe.
A little too late, I was dead.
Yeah, no, unfortunately Osu got the Mori, but
it was too late for me.
But this is the polar opposite. Everybody talks about nurses too overpowered. Is she strong? Most definitely. But a survivor who can play against nurse intelligently can burn a lot of her time. And yeah, I agree, Mr. Mustachio. If you don't know what the Hex Totem is, don't touch it. Leave it alone. See if you can identify something else first. Or if you run by a bunch of bones and they're all dulls, then take the chance. Because Haunted Ground always occupies 2 totems.
And the other things too is, like, if it's like right at the beginning of the game, you might not want to break a Hex Totem, especially when the killer's close to you. So
yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, even before this video came out, a lot of people were talking about nurses being overpowered in general. I I don't have the screen captures for the stream, but I also remember seeing like a few nurse mains speaking out too. Like Super Alf tweeted saying that like, you know, even though he's one of the most well known nurse mains out there, he's like he even said, I agree. He's like, nurse should be nerfed, but not to the extent what everybody is saying. He said literally like the only thing you need to do to nurse is take away her range. Take away her range and make her an M1 killer. Because at the end of the day, like, the only reason she gets value from these exposed perks is because her blink attacks count as an M1. It's no different than Deathslinger shooting you and then hitting you with his rifle. It's an M1 attack. Meanwhile, when you have Blight, Blight's rush attacks aren't considered M1s, they're considered M2s. So he doesn't get any value from the exposed effect if he rushes at you and hits you. He has to walk you down. So, what's your thoughts on Nurse overall, like video aside? Do you agree with like the community coming out saying that she needs a nerf?
Base kit Nurse, no. I think base kit Nurse is totally fine. I understand people getting upset. Hell, I get upset sometimes because she is a killer that breaks the fundamentals of the game. She doesn't have to loop. She doesn't have to engage with pallets or windows or what have you. But the counterplay to her is very much the same. Pay attention to where she is. Pay attention to where she's looking, because Nurse, like so many other killers, can only move where she's looking when she's got her power active. She can't blink sideways. So if you pay attention to where she is, where she's looking, and you'll see it all the time. You'll see people that run directly into a nurse when she's charging her blink because she'll blink past you. You'll see people run around a corner and then immediately double back the same direction because the nurse will try to predict and cut them off and she misses. Like, this is not a killer that is so awfully powerful that you just cannot win. She's annoying, for sure. Like, I don't like going against Nurse, especially if it's a good Nurse. I've gotten very similar clips to that 45-second four-man slug. But base kit, she's totally fine. I think what I would recommend they do, and this would be the first time they ever do something like this, so, you know, behavior probably won't go for it. Leave the range add-ons and stuff alone, but don't allow her to run 2 range add-ons, and don't allow her to run a recharge if she brings a range.
I mean, you could make it where like range add-ons don't stack.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen like other perks where it literally says like this will not stack with this. So
yeah, Monitor and Shadowborn are a great example. FOV gains do not stack together.
Yeah, so they could easily like just make it where, hey, you have to choose. Do you want like maximum range? Do you want like half range?
Yeah.
So, because I agree with you, I don't think Nurse by base kit is overpowered. The thing is, and you know, Mr. Mustachio said it as well. Like, Nurse is a high skill cap killer. There's not a lot of people who can pick up Nurse casually and wreck a match. And if you can wreck a match, it's because you're going against survivors that have no idea what they're doing. When you go against a competent team of survivors or someone, for example, in this video here, Rhaz knows more than the person playing Nurse. Now, the fun fact, this person came into our stream afterward and told us that they don't play Nurse. They said they had a daily and they were just trying to get their blink hits in. And they even said the reason they wanted to play her is because they wanted to see just how overpowered she was.
Yeah.
And we asked them, we're like, well, what'd you think? And they were like, she's hard to play. So it literally boils down to one of those things where, and I feel like this conversation happened a few years ago when I first started playing DBD. Everyone was kind of going after Nurse a little bit. It's just one of those things where it's like, if you are a high skilled player as Nurse, you're super deadly. But if you're not a high skilled player and you're going against high skilled survivors, like, Nurses can be pretty predictable. I mean, Rhaz...
So this whole time we've been talking, that's the first time I went down.
Yeah, this entire time. we timed it. Rhaz ran this Nurse for like 5 to 6 minutes. The only reason Meg didn't finish 2 gens is because this Nurse had Pentimento.
Yeah. And if this was a Nurse player who was good at Nurse and who was playing Nurse to play nurse and not to get a daily done and not to see what she's like, this nurse would have broken that chase a long time ago. She would have left me alone. Because after the first like 30-35 seconds and she hasn't downed me, she knows she needs to go for somebody else. Because most nurses will end a chase faster than that.
And honestly, that's how you know the difference between like skilled killers and killers that aren't as skilled or knowledgeable. Because the thing is, like, you need to know as a killer when you need to leave a chase. You know at a certain point that if you stay in this chase, you lose the game. You lose a generator. You lose 2 generators. So he definitely hard committed way too long to Rhaz on that one.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, like, there's not too much to dive into this nurse conversation. We just kind of wanted to go over it, kind of show you guys the video, show you guys the clips. At the end of the day, in my opinion, I don't think nurse needs a nerf, honestly. I have fun going against her. I have fun going against the baby ones, and I have fun going against the good ones. But
Yeah.
and big if behavior is to nerf nurse, the only thing that I think like should even be an option is make her attack M once and maybe nerf the range. That's it. Anything else isn't really necessary.
Yeah, I think if they changed her blink attacks to special attacks from being basic attacks, you'll see a lot more build variety on Nurse. Starstruck and Agitation, you literally will not be able to use.
I'm actually kind of
So,
curious to how good most nurses would be without Starstruck Agi.
yeah,
You,
where they actually have to two-hit people.
yeah, because like you see Starstruck Agi almost all the time on nurses.
Yeah.
I think like the only nurse I've ever seen not run Starstruck Agi was Yui. The few times I went against Yui.
Yeah. But again, even this Meg is sitting here running this nurse for a long time because there is a noticeable difference. There is a genuine skill gap between a good nurse and somebody who's just trying nurse.
She almost tricked the nurse into like teleporting into the gate.
Yeah, she almost blinks through the wall here.
Even the random ranner. Come on, guys. Like,
Yeah.
and see, and that's the funny thing about DVD clips, right? You can play a clip and make a killer look overpowered, and you can play a clip and make a killer look underpowered. There's so many different variables, but when it comes to that viral clip, like, that's the thing, man. Like, it wasn't an overpowered killer with overpowered like movements and attacks. It was literally just that dude got the perfect once in a lifetime scenario for the build that he was running. That's kind of what it boils down to with Nurse.
Yeah. It's a rare day when you can run a build like that and get that level of value that quickly.
And I do agree. The problem with changing her blink to M2 would be that her base speed would need to be significantly increased. She's easily the slowest base kit killer. At the end of the day, if they're going to nerf a killer in any capacity, they have to buff them somehow. They have to reciprocate to another part of that killer. We can look at like so many different killers in the past that have been nerfed. You look at Deathslinger. They nerfed his terror radius. They nerfed his actual ADS speed, and then they like buffed his add-ons, right? So like, there's like certain they're gonna do something. I'm pretty confident that if they were to nerf Nurse in that aspect, they probably will boost up her speed a little bit.
My problem with that, I don't think they'll bring Nurse back to a faster speed. For those of you who don't know, maybe you're a newer player, Nurse used to be 105%. She used to be the same speed as Tier 1 Myers. When they changed her, and she used to have 3 blinks, so she used to be faster and more mobile. And she used to be able to get up to 6 blinks in total, and they all recharged at the same time rather than one at a time.
Sounds like a
So when they
nightmare.
changed her to this system, she's 96.25, so they dropped her almost 10% speed. They removed a blink, and they made her blinks recharge individually. If they move her blink attacks to special attacks, they're not going to make her faster. Not after people have played the 96.25% nurse and still come out with these 45-second 4Ks because of slugging with haunted ground and things like that. They're not going to bring her back to being any faster. They'll just remove her ability to use exposed effects. They'll probably give her an exposed add-on similar to the iridescent blight tag, and that's how they'll make up for it. And then she'll just play like a standard 2-hit killer from that point forward.
I can see that. Yeah, the age of the Omega Blink nurse was before my time.
Yeah, that's the original Omega Blink nurse. Everybody talks about double range now as Omega Blink, but if you were around for 6 Blink nurse, that was Omega Blink nurse.
Of course, that was like back when like she was released, wasn't
Yeah, that was early nurse when she came out.
it? Before behavior even like thought about balancing the game.
Yeah, when they were still trying to figure out the game
They're
itself.
like, what's this gonna be? Is this a hide and seek game or a cat and mouse game? I don't know yet. We'll see what the players decide.
Yeah.
With that one, guys, we're gonna kind of roll into our next topic here. We don't want to get stuck on one topic for too long. The next topic that we're really gonna be discussing is the mentality that's really going on right now in everywhere on Twitter, forums, Reddit, Facebook, anything with DBD related. And we're also curious to y'all's opinions too while you're here. The main conversation right now is the topic of survivors and killers with the 6.1.0 update. Was the update killer sided? Why are killers more toxic? Why are killer queues so long and things like that? So I'm going to let Rhaz kind of take the helm of the start of this one, but we're definitely kind of curious to what you guys have been seeing out there online or what you guys think, because we definitely have some opinions. So that's all I got. What you got, Rhaz?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna come out swinging. I'm just gonna get people mad. Uh, the reason that killers are being more toxic is because survivors are playing killer. Because this is a killer sided patch,
Raz
and
like,
everybody went.
You're like, I'm not even
I'm
gonna.
gonna make people mad,
You're
dude.
like,
I know
no,
I am.
You're like, I'm not even gonna build up to it. I'm just gonna like come out the gate, fucking like ready to bat.
No, I'm just gonna fucking come out swinging. Yeah, it's so many of your survivors are so used to being in the power role. They're so used to being in control of the game. They're so used to being able to just run into a game and run a killer for 4 gens and make them DC and clicky clicky and teabag and all those things. All the things that we talked about early on in the podcast with toxicity and what that means. They're so used to being able to do all of those things that now that killer is in a better spot than survivor, most of those survivor players are moving to killer. And as a result, they're reinforcing the stereotype of toxic killer. What they're doing is they are playing into what they whine and bitch and moan and complain about, and they're going, I'll just play this way to further reinforce that killers are annoying so that when I go back to Survivor, I can feel like I'm doing something right by being the same person that I've been for as long as I've played Dead by Daylight. And that's why killer queues take so goddamn long now, because there's more killers. We went from this massive flood of survivors when Michaela came out, when Boons dropped back in October, to 6.1, where killers are really fucking good. So all your survivors are moving over to killer and forcing the killer queues to take a long ass time because there's not enough survivors, and they're face camping and they're tunneling and they're running these, no ed, no way out, these quote unquote toxic builds, and they're running powerful add-ons, and they're just being assholes. So that when they go back to Survivor, which is their main role, they can feel vindicated, I guess, for lack of a better term, when they go back to playing the same way that they're playing on Killer, but back on Survivor.
And the funny thing is I've actually seen this kind of tweeted around quite a bit. I see some people in chat are like, hey, I said the same exact thing. First 4 or 5 days, killers across the board were more toxic, but it's definitely leveled out the last couple days. I can agree with that. We played shit the entire stream yesterday on Survivor, way longer than I planned to.
Yeah.
And we had some pretty good games. Like we weren't really camped or tunneled. Honestly, I was getting more pissed off at my Survivor randoms than I was the killer. But at the end of the day, like it's so amazing to me that if you look at it, like you literally just think about it. 6.1.0 came out. It is the biggest killer buff update in since I've been playing Dead by Daylight, honestly. I kind of came when the Survivor Rhaz took off. But the thing is when you look at the actual player base percentages, the player base for killer skyrocketed and the player base for survivors dropped. You had a lot of new players come back with this update. And it doesn't like take rocket science to do the math and just figure it out. If you just look at the numbers, then you sit in a killer queue for almost 15 minutes, which is absurd. I used to get that crap instantly, right? Mm-hmm. Now survivors are instantly. That's never happened before. So it's one of those weird things where, like, when you really look at it, it makes sense. The reason killer player base is skyrocketed is because survivors swapped over to killer side. And I guarantee you, most of those killers that are camping and tunneling and playing the way that they play are those people who swapped over. Because when you look at killer mains that like me and Rhaz and other people that have been playing this game for a long time, not all of us are malicious. Like, not all of us want to make your game bad, right? Some of us might be a little bit competitive. Like, you know, if there's one gen left and you're on the hook, I might make sure you die. But that's just how the game is, right? But I'm not going to sit there and face camp you at the beginning of the match. Or when there's 4 gens left and you get off the hook, I'm going to come straight for you and completely ignore everybody else getting in my way. It's a little bit of a difference. So I definitely think it's one of those situations where it's the survivor fan base swapping over, making killers look bad. And I don't know if anybody saw it today, but Oddsdarva tweeted. Did you see this, Rhaz?
No, I didn't.
So Oddsdarva tweeted, he said, "My tinfoil hat conspiracy is that survivors are playing killer and are being toxic, and while they're playing survivor, they're DCing and quitting early to mess with the statistics to make it look like killers are overpowered."
I wouldn't be surprised. Dude, I think he's totally on the right track.
Bro, I read the comments, and like all the comments were like, "Hey, yo." Like,
yeah, I think he's totally right. Because I mean, in all the games that we played yesterday, we had 2 back-to-back DCs, and we had 1 killer who gave up, which was the Sadako. And she played the whole game out until the end, and then she gave up. She didn't DC, but she just stopped at the end game.
And she actually did really good too for a Sadako.
Yeah. So in the games that we played, however many that was, I would hazard a guess probably 13, 15, somewhere in there over the course of the stream. 2 DCs and one end game give up. So killer players who are actually playing the game are doing well, but there are killers that are quitting, as we saw. You know, the Bubba burned a dead dog offering and then chased the guy with no mither, got dead-hearted and DC'd. Which I thought was hysterical.
Yeah, I've never seen somebody DC because they couldn't catch a no-mither player.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the Legion, I think that was just bad luck, honestly. The Legion picked the wrong person to go after, and she was just having such a bad time.
The Legion chased the Legion main and couldn't catch the Legion main.
Yeah, and I just, I felt kind of bad, but also at the same time, it's like, that Legion DC less than a minute into the game. We hadn't even had the chance to start playing yet. Nobody was working on gens, and if they were, they weren't farther than 10 or 15%. So it wasn't like this game was totally out of control. It wasn't, 3 gens popped and she's still chasing me. It was just, well, the first frenzy I stunned her out of, and then the second frenzy she missed, and then she walked away from me and DC'd.
And, and I've also noticed that, like, DCing is, like, increased recently. Especially, like, even on killer side, I don't think I've ever really been in a match or in one stream, in a 5-hour stream, I've never had more than 1 killer DC. From, like, not even being toxic, just genuinely just disconnect. Like, never seen it happen. That's crazy. And then Survivor is like, oh my fuck.
There are a lot of survivors giving up on first hook and a lot of survivors DCing for sure.
So many, man. Like, even when I played killer yesterday, I spawned into a game as nurse, right? I wasn't even running anything crazy. I had barbecue and chili, floods of rage, lethal pursuer, and I forgot what the 4th one was. It's an all-seeing build, like, and I didn't even have double range. I had a spoon and a tooth. Like, that's it, a spoon and a tooth. So I spawned in, and there was a Felix working on a chest, right? And I literally just, like, teleported to him. I didn't even get on top of him, right? I just got a little close, but he heard the screech of a nurse and he just stood there. And I was like, All right, so I hooked him. He took it. He took his quick way out of the game. Found this other Claudette. She took her quick way out of the game. And then like the last two survivors were actually trying to play. So it was just, it's like, dude, you didn't even wait to see like, was I a good nurse? Did I have like an OP powerful build? Like it's just, it's ridiculous, man. It's so ridiculous how people are just jumping to DCs.
Yeah, I mean, I had something similar when I was playing Legion. I mean, I was running, I didn't have, the thing that everybody complained about after Legion's rework. I wasn't running Never Sleep pills with Mural Sketch. I was a regular Legion. I had the Etched Ruler and the Mischief List, which are both brown add-ons. One makes Frenzy last a little longer, and one makes Frenzy come back a little faster. And I spawned into the swamp, ran straight over to the pantry, found a Claudette. As I ran up to her, frenzied, and hit her, she alt F4'd. And then I ran and found a David. I put him on the hook, and he killed himself on hook. Among all the other things, like everybody complained about Legion for a while, and then they finally calmed down because they realized Legion's still not that fucking powerful. But Legion is my killer, and has been my killer since they dropped.
Since he was bad.
Yeah, since he was a 110 killer when he first came out, when he was 4.4 with Huntress and Spirit and Hag, I have played Legion. So, am I going to be able to do some things that a regular Legion can't? Probably. I mean, I get people trying to vault tech me all the time, which if you're an experienced Legion and you know how to deal with a vault tech, you'll never get hit by one in your entire life. But I didn't do anything crazy that game. The game started, I used my power, and somebody DC'd.
Yeah, I'll be honest.
So I don't understand, man.
I can't even count how many DCs I get playing as Deathslinger. So many people don't like Deathslinger. The second you make a good shot, you shoot him through the window or anything like that. Survivor's DC. And the funny thing is, if they think DCing against a killer is going to like skew the numbers, right? Behavior has said it before. DCs do not count. If somebody DCs, that is not counted in the metrics at all. That's why you're seeing more survivors killing themselves on their first hook. Because dying on hook does count, but DCing doesn't. I don't know, man, but like the whole DC thing has kind of been going rampant here again. I think it goes back to being entitled. I literally saw somebody like arguing in a Facebook group this morning, right? I had a little break time between work, and I started scrolling, and I was like, ooh, drama. I like that, right? So I started reading it. And the OP basically was saying that they were tired of their survivor teammates quitting because they didn't like the killer they were going against, DCing because they got outsmarted at a loop, or et cetera, right? But then, like, after this huge rant, he has this other section, and it's basically like, you guys act like that, but at the end of the day, like, I'm still gonna do what I want. And somebody asked him about it, like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, I just think it's stupid how people do this, this, and this, and this. But at the end of the day, like, if the game's not going to go anywhere, then I'm just going to get out of the game. And they're like, but what's the difference in what you're bitching about and what you're saying? You're just going to do whatever you want to do. So if you spawn into a game and you don't like a trickster, you're just going to just leave the game, like, and screw the entire team. You're like, and dude, they were going back and forth, but it brings up the point of entitlement. There are so many people that believe they are entitled to a certain type of game. It's like, I don't like Trickster, so if I go against a Trickster, I'm just not going to play because that's not the game I want. That's not the game I want to play. Well, at the end of the day, like, this is the game. It's Dead by Daylight. You don't get to choose your killer you face. You don't get to choose the survivors you're playing with. It's all about the mystery of what killer is it? How can you beat that killer? What can you do? Can you outsmart them? Can you win? Because at the end of the day, I, with a passion, hate going against Bubbas. And I'm not going to lie. I would love to just die on my first hook and get out of the game. But I don't. Because if I do, my team is dead.
Yeah, everybody loses.
And that's the biggest thing, too. Like, when you just quit, you're not just like saying, okay, GG's, I'm going to go my next game. You're literally screwing that entire team. Losing one person with 5 or 4 gens, that's game over. I would be shocked if a survivor team can make a comeback if they lose one player and there's 4 or 5 gens left.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, when I say we, speaking of you, myself, and Deck, who we were playing with at the time, we had a Leon who DC'd against a clown at the start of the game,
For no reason.
and we almost turned that game around. But we are, I would say, in a very small minority of Dead by Daylight players who not only have a shitload of hours in the game, but have also played the game in tournaments. So we have a better understanding of the game and are more likely to be able to get that kind of a turnaround. So if you're normal Dead by Daylight players, if you're a group of just random motherfuckers, get somebody like that Leon who's DC, you're screwed. There's no fucking chance. Because we still lost. All three of us still died. But we were close. And that's the problem. We were close to winning.
Yeah. That's the crazy thing, man. Just show how weighted the game is towards survivors. Survivors have a lot of power on the game. And it's kind of like Rhaz was just saying as you guys rated in. We were talking about killers DCing. And the Raiders, y'all missed the very beginning of it. But basically, we spawned into a match. And a Leon on our team saw it was a clown and DC'd at the very beginning. Not a single gen done, right? Well, this clown... And keep in mind, this was a clown that had the speed bug.
Yeah.
Right?
He's been kill switched now.
Yeah, he got kill switched now. But this was a clown with a speed bug. And we lost Leon at the very beginning of the match. And we still almost beat that clown. Like, we got literally, I want to say we had 4 gens. It was 3 or 4.
Yeah, we finished 4 gens, and then the Devour killed us because he had Devour Hope.
If he didn't have Devour, like, we would have won that game. But the thing is, and it's like Rhaz was saying, like, me and Rhaz fall into that very small percentage of Survivor players who we have a lot of hours in this game. We've played a lot. Hell, we have an entire series of Survive with Frenemies, which is basically the equivalent of Dowsey's Hardcore Survivor, where we literally pitted ourselves against each other and the killer. And if you've been watching the series, quite a lot of us still escaped numerous times, and we weren't going against like weak killers. We were going against killers that were bringing the sweatiest things they could because they saw 4 TTVs in the lobby. It boils back down to that entitlement thing, man. Like, people just want the game to go a certain way and they don't care about the other players. And there was actually a guy who commented on a YouTube video. It was one of Hydro's videos, actually. And I commented and I was like, yo, I think the new update's great for killers, etc., etc. And this dude commented at me and was saying that it's killers' problems, this, and this. Like, you know, my team DCs and this. And he's like, and my entire team was down in the first 2 minutes. Like, killers are clearly overpowered. And so I hit him back, right? And I was like, okay, let's analyze this. You're saying the killers are overpowered, but you and your entire team got down in the first 2 minutes before one generator was done? That doesn't sound like a killer overpowered problem. That sounds like a survivor problem. That means you and your team made some really bad plays and got yourself set up in that situation where you all got downed.
Killer capitalized on your mistakes.
You made bad plays. And if your team makes a bad play, that's not the killer being overpowered. If your team DCs, hey, honestly, it sucks. But you can still beat the killer. We did it, right? Almost. Devour got us. But we almost did it, right? It's one of those things where it's just crazy to me. I can't comprehend the entitlement of people saying they don't like their team DCing, but they're going to do what they want in their matches.
Yeah, and I will say I had a match on stream. I told you about this. I was playing as Nemesis, and these survivors were running Sabo breakout, breakdown, you know, stereotypical altruism, save each other off the shoulder type of builds. And I got 2 of them killed, and the other 2 ran to the corner where their 2 teammates had died, so the hooks were gone, and then just waited for me to down them. They literally ran over to the corner and stood there. So I downed them, and I looked around, and I went, well, I'm not making anybody to a hook, so I have to sit here and bleed them out. And then somebody came into my stream chat, which was one of the 2 that I had killed, and was like, dude, it's not that serious. You can just let them wiggle off your shoulder. And I was like, yeah, let me let them wiggle off my shoulder so that they can run back to this corner again and continue to waste my time. So it's cool if you guys waste my time, but I'm not allowed to waste your time to counter the build that you're bringing. I just have to put up with your build and let you do whatever the hell you want.
The pure definition of entitled. Like,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you can play however you want and you can run whatever you want, but I can't play around your build. And I can't beat you at your own game. Just have to complain about it.
and I like what Wyvern is saying in the chat too. So I personally think this patch is skewed to killer side, but I have seen plenty of matches that survivors are rolling over the killers. Survivors just aren't used to having to work as a team while solo queuing, and that's the problem. Solo queue survivors aren't used to having to work as a team. With this patch, you have to work together, or you aren't going to get anything accomplished. The thing I like about that statement, Survivor has always been a team-based game. Always. And I think the big issue is a lot of solo players don't have the game sense of how to play as a team without comms.
They would just play greedy.
They don't know what to do, and you see it all the time. It's one of those things where literally it happened yesterday on stream. It was the first game we played, and I almost lost my I was mad. Okay, I was mauling for the first time ever on stream. I was pissed off, right? I was downed by the nurse. I had started to recover. This Meg comes up to pick me up, right? So Meg is in like between, like off to the side, and nurse is like over there coming towards us, right? And Meg is like healing me. Now the common sense, the game sense competitive survivor in me, what I would do in this situation is I know that nurse is gonna blink. She's going to blink and she's going to swing. She's either going to down the guy I'm trying to pick up or she's going to hit me. If she hits me, she gets a stun. So the second I had the survivor on the ground at 98, 99%, I'd let go. She'd blink, she would swing, she hits me, I pick them up, we both dip out during Nurse's 3-second stun, and then Nurse has to pick who she's going to go for. But instead, this solo random Meg like is at 98%, and instead of letting go, she fully heals me just so I can get smacked right back down by the nurse, and then I get put on a hook. It's that's the issue. Like, solo survivors don't have the common game knowledge of what to do in certain situations, which cost the team their plays. And that I agree with Wyvern. Like, that's it. Like, solo queue survivors, it's not because they don't have the assets. It's not because solo queue's too hard because people keep DCing. Well, sucks to suck. Like, talk to your community. Like, that's the survivor side right now, right? But those solo players, like, if you don't have the game sense and you're just trying to like, oh, should I go save them on hook? Like, can you look at a hook timer and know how much time that person has? Can you do that? If you can't do that, then you have no game sense. Because I can look at a timer and be like, damn, he's got like 10 seconds. He's got 20 seconds. And like,
they also don't have Dead Hard to cover their mistakes anymore.
That's the big thing too. So many survivors rely on Dead Hard. I still have survivors trying to Dead Hard into me, trying to Dead Hard for distance. Like,
oh, that's so funny. Dude. When you get a survivor trying to Dead Hard for distance. Yeah.
It's just one of those things where I don't think the issue is with solo queue. I think the issue is with player skill. Because on the same level, right? I watch a lot of Brian_S. If you guys don't know who Brian S is, he is a survivor main on Twitch. He has over 10,000 hours. He's good friends with a lot of big names that you've all have seen. Super Alf has chased him in numerous of Super Alf's videos. He normally plays solo queue on stream. And most of the time, he escapes. Most of the time, his team escapes. Because he has 10,000 hours. He knows what he's doing. I've gone against him 3 times. The first time, the only reason I killed him is because I had to tunnel him out. I didn't have a choice at the end game. The second time, I killed some of his friends, and I went for him, and he outsmarted me and escaped. The third time, his team wrecked my ass. Destroyed me, right? That's just what it boils down to. When he was with a Swift, I couldn't beat him. When he was by himself, I still struggled to beat him.
Yeah, it's a lot of it comes down to good game sense and good game knowledge. When I played against Running Man, he was on Survivor and he was duo queued. It was him and a Nancy on the Survivor team that were together. Those two kept my attention all game, and it wasn't because I refused to let go of Chase. It was because I literally couldn't find the other two. Because they were playing immersed, they were hiding in lockers, they were doing the coward shit, while Running Man and his friend were just out in my face bothering me and being annoying and better at the game than me. Because Running Man's, he's closing in on 11,000 hours. And I'm sure that his friends are damn near those kind of numbers as well. So the survivors need good game sense. As a killer, you can tend to get away with a decent match without a whole lot of game sense. You'll just stumble onto people. You'll find somebody that likes to camp on a pallet, and you'll be able to swing through the pallet. You'll find somebody who doesn't understand what your killer does or doesn't know that you have XYZ add-on and plays poorly. As Survivor, when you get into that chase and when it's a one-on-one with you and that killer, if you don't have game sense, you die. So, really 6.1 to me highlighted just how much survivors do not understand the game that they're playing. They relied on Dead Hard to carry their mistakes. They relied on other people being the ones to take the heat. And if they got found, they didn't know what to do. So, is this a killer-sided patch? Absolutely. Killer's got a ton of quality of life changes that they'd been needing for a long time.
Thank God.
But it is not just killers are now OP. It is survivors are running out of tools.
Well,
Because you don't have decisive and dead hard and all these other, alphabet perks to carry you through the game.
you got to know how to loop. You got to know how a killer's power works too. Like,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, for on the killer aspect of things, like things feel so much better. I used to play a game as Deathslinger, and I would be so stressed about my first chase. If I miss 2 or 3 shots, that's it. I've lost at least a gen or two. But like now, it's like I don't even really have that concern. I have the time to get my down, get my hook, and keep moving on at a common pace. So I do see some comments in chat. Mr. Last Laugh, it's nice to have you here, by the way. Survivors going to complain. Facts. Killers like Nightmare are really the only ones that feel good to play because of high map mobility. And even then, it's still close matches. I get what you're trying to say. I don't think I would use Nightmare as the example. But
Poor Freddy.
yeah, I do agree with what you're saying, though. Killers with high mobility have always been doing pretty decent. But killers with low mobility have been doing pretty decent. I mean, honestly, I played an offline game yesterday with Rhaz, and I played Freddy. I was like, you know what? I used to be a Freddy main back in the day. I haven't played him in a while. Let's see how I do. And I did a lot of like mind games that I learned over time, teleporting to gens to cut people off, using the snare slowdowns to actually slow them down. Like if you play Freddy and you put a snare right in front of the window, you're not doing shit for yourself. You got to put a little bit of space. Let them hit that thing so they slow down, and then they try to vault, then you get the hit, right? I'll do a video teaching Freddy later. But I played that game, and that ended up being a 4K, and they weren't a bad team. They were a pretty good team. So it definitely...
And they forced the map.
Yeah, they also forced the map, too. They brought me to the game. Game as Freddy, guys. Come on. But that wasn't too bad. Mr. Mustachio, solo players have never brought team builds. Solo survivors only ever brought these solo fuck with the killer builds, and now they have to run perks that complement team play. Yeah, I noticed that a lot too. Solo survivors bringing, I mean, I guess you could say selfish perks. I don't know if I would use the term selfish. More like
the playstyle was definitely selfish.
Yeah, yeah. It's not like selfish by definition, but it's like I just want to take care of me because I don't trust you to heal me type of gameplay. I do agree with that though. Loved it as a killer. Just wanted to show the entitlement of some survivors, their inability to take part of ownership what happened. Oh, you're talking about the Oni match you had? Yeah. There's I think I've only had in my time one survivor who owned up and was like, "Oh wow, I was actually wrong. You were right." A lot of other survivors won't normally admit when they made the mistake or their team made the mistake. It's always the killer's fault.
Well, it's like, yeah, it's always the killer's fault. It doesn't matter what it was. Killer's at fault.
Dude, as a killer, I feel scary at this time. I've dropped most of my Jin control perks and want more aura reading perks with one Jin slowdown, and it's been a perfect balance for my playstyle. And that's the thing. That's the point of this update. This update, like, I got into an argument with somebody who was like praising that killer Jin regression perks got nerfed, and I was like,
Are we playing the same game?
I was like, what are you talking about? Like, are you playing like in an alternate universe? Like, they all got buffed except like 2 of them. And he's like, well, Ruin's dead, so now that you don't have Ruin, it's dead. And I'm like, the Jin regression's not dead though. Like Ruin, sure, Ruin's dead. Honestly, after seeing it in game yesterday, it's still pretty viable.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to say Ruin's dead, sure, but Pop is basically the same. Jolt is so much better. Eruption is so much better. Scourge is basically the same. Like what? You don't get the information? Big deal. You're still getting a shit ton of percentage decrease somewhere. Like
Overcharge is wild.
Overcharge,
Call of Brine is still good.
Overcharge is insane. Call of Brine is basically the new Pop and Ruin. So like this dude was just like praising that they were getting nerfed, and I was like, I think you read the wrong update, bro. Like this is a killer update, and it's a good one. But back to the point. Wyvern, that's the whole point of this. That's why they increased the kick percentage when you dry kick a generator. It's to incentivize, like, hey, you don't need these gen regression perks anymore. You can bring them, but you don't need to 4-stack it, even though I still do, because I like my OG build I've been running for 2 years. But you don't need to 4-stack it. They're like, look, you just bring one gen perk if you really want it, but you can do all these other things. You can do an all-seeing Deathslinger. You can do a pallet-breaking Trickster. Like, do whatever you want. Like, mix and match. Do some crazy things. And I will say, in my experiences, I've seen a lot of really unique builds out there. Heck, yeah. we went against one yesterday that I was like, yo, that's actually pretty good. The Huntress. That build, I had never seen that before. And I was like, yo, she's legit scaring the fuck out of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that Wooden Fox, man. If you're a good Huntress that can use Wooden Fox, holy shit.
Yeah, she, like, what all she had? She had Wooden Fox.
With the Deerskin Gloves, with Iron Maiden, Darkness Revealed, Lethal, and I think Barbecue. Yeah, Barbecue was her last perk. It was literally all aura reading and reload.
Yeah, it was literally designed for her to just open lockers, not have a terror radius, and snipe people. And she was really good at it. Yeah. Oh, and on all maps, it was the new map. Like, yeah. She did really good. And I had never seen that before. Because I remember, like, you're like, is that a Huntress? She doesn't have a red stain. And I'm like, what? I was like,
yeah.
I was like, the match just started.
She did a fucking free hit on me. I was like, oh, all right, cool.
I was like, it's too early for Tinkerer. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I legit thought she was hacking, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's the add-on. And I was just like, I didn't even know that was a thing, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. It took me a second, because I was like, I was sitting there going, okay, it's Huntress, and the game is like 20 seconds in, and she doesn't have a red stain, and she doesn't have a terror radius. She's right fucking next to me, and I can only hear the lullaby. So I'm just going like, okay, all right, how is this possible? Because I don't want to be that guy that I get on Survivor and I jump to everybody's hacking because I don't understand. So I was like, oh, you know what? Wooden Fox. And then when I watched her reload and saw the red stain went away, I was like, yeah, Wooden Fox.
Yeah,
then I died like 20 seconds later.
That game was insane. But the funny thing is, like, that was probably the most fun game I had the entire stream.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Like, we've gone against so many Huntresses, and I love going against Huntress. It's fun. But that build was so unique and so different. We had never seen it before. That's what this whole update's about. Because before then, if you tried something like that, you were just going to get swept.
Yeah, you just lose.
Maybe get a 2K. Maybe you camp out that one on the end game. That is definitely nice to see.
Yeah.
I had a game last night where I thought a pig mad a slug just for a 4K when I was halfway across the map, and I kind of made a comment. But they came into chat and said they saw me in the area a few seconds earlier, thanks to Floods of Rage, and I was like, oh, cool, my bad. I definitely get that entitled Survivor brain sometimes. Honestly, I think we all do. I don't think everybody is like immune to it. We're human. We're human and we're gamers. So you're gonna have those moments where you're kind of like, I don't know, man, that's kind of sus, right? Like even me and Rhaz, we had a moment yesterday where like Rhaz was like, I think we have a knower, Osu, and I was like, oh, you think we have a knower, huh? That's kind of like
That was the dredge, yeah.
yeah, the dredge. This dredge was so perfectly coming everywhere that we said we were. It's like, hey, I'm on this gin, and then he would just magically come to that gin, right?
Yeah, he's just there.
Now, at the end of the day, could we prove he was stream sniping? No. Did his perks really explain how he could have done that? No.
No.
But we weren't like being super rude about it. We're just like, oh, we have a knower. It is what it is. If you're gonna put TTV in your name, expect to be stream sniped.
Yeah, you got it. It's gonna happen,
Yeah,
you know. And I mean, it's like I don't remember who it was. There was somebody in one of our games that came into my chat and said, "Hey, I think you're being stream sniped." And I was like, "You know what, dude? It sucks, but it kind of comes with the territory, and there's nothing I can do about it."
That's why if you ever watch my streams, I always have little Slingerillo in the corner. He's blocking my perks. Doesn't matter who you are. You pop in to stream snipe me when I'm playing killer, you're not gonna know what perks I have. So, you know, you can do like little things like that. And honestly, sometimes you're gonna know somebody's stream sniping you. I mean, when we did survive with frenemies, we actually had to take TTVs out of our name at one point because people were stream sniping us and almost ruining the series. But Mr. Last Laugh, is it wrong that I love Franklin's? Feels like a killer. I have to have perks that bring the grief, but I guess that's because I'd rather piss off survivors than win matches. You know, and at the same time, that's how some people have fun.
Run whatever's fun for you.
Some people run Franklin. Some people run Lightborn. At the end of the day, like, do you. Have fun doing you.
You spent money on the game, play it how you want.
Yeah. It's kind of like I hate Basement Insidious Bubbas. I hate them with a passion. I don't think it's fun. I think it's boring, and I think it's stupid. But there's a whole community out there that love it.
Mm-hmm.
Spook and Jukes used to do it every Tuesday and would have 800 people watching him do it, and they all enjoyed it. So, like, some people enjoy that stuff. Some people think it's toxic. Some people don't think it's toxic. So at the end of the day, play the game how you want to play. Who cares what other people think? You know? Some people are going to be mood. Some people are going to be rude. Some people are going to be nice. You never know. It just is what it is. All right. And Isle says, this will probably be the last comment. Then we'll roll into our next topic. So Isle says, I had on Rio last night when I was the only hook she got. I got to the second hook because she literally face camped because we popped all gins. They had to force to get me off hook. She still tried to tunnel me after they got me off the hook. Still got out alive. 3 of us got out. 1 died trying to save me from the tunnel. Sounds like Onryo.
Sounds like she played what she needed to do, though.
I think it depends when he got hooked. Sounds like she made a bad play.
Well, if all the gens pop, then yeah, of course I'm gonna fucking face camp. I want to secure at least some points for the game.
Oh yeah, if the gens were already done, then it's understandable. But if she camped you as the gens were getting done, that's her own fault. That was dumb.
Yeah, that's something different. But if the gens are getting done, like if she hooks you and then like 3 gens pop in the distance, yeah, I'm just gonna fucking camp you, dude. Sorry, but
yeah, that's on her. Bad play. All right, guys. So, with that, our next topic is actually a discussion that me and Rhaz somewhat disagree on. So,
yeah,
we talked a little bit about it, and then I was like, you know what? Let's stop. I was like, let's drop this subject, because if we talk about it now, we're going to hash out our opinion, and then we're not going to have anything fun to talk about on Totem Talks. So we completely dropped the subject. You know, we kind of rolled into it. And I'm curious on what you guys think, because this topic affects all of us. And what we're going to be talking about is the Bloodweb. We're going to be talking about, is the grind easier, or is it actually a lot harder? There's a lot of different takes on this, right? I'll start off with my take on it, since I am, I guess, the driving point of the conversation, and you're the counter to me. So I'm actually going to pull it up on my phone because I have it in my notes, right?
Oh. We got whole notes.
Oh yeah. I didn't delete it last time because I knew we were going to talk about it, so I wanted to save it.
That man wrote an essay.
So here's what we're gonna do. We'll do it this way, Rhaz. We'll go like point by point
Sure.
instead of me just shotgun blasting everything at one time. So we'll start about we'll talk about the prestige first, because that was kind of my first topic. So the way this started is I saw a bunch of tweets of people talking about how they didn't feel like the grind has changed. They just think the grind is reworded to look like it's changed. And I had a few points here that I was going to post on Twitter to see what everybody's opinions were. And then me and Rhaz started talking about it. I was like, okay, let's hold this. So first topic is prestiging, right? And I'll kind of explain what I wrote down, right? So I said, as a completionist and someone who wants to reach a P100 slinger, it's one of my goals. I want to be one of the first death slingers to reach P100. I find myself pouring all my points into slinger. This is severely limiting the potential of unlocking survivor perks or leveling up other characters. For example, if I played 4 hours a day and poured all my points into Deathslinger, it would take approximately 100 days to accomplish this, assuming I played 4 hours a day and poured all points into him. I said, I like the idea of having dedicated prestiges for player mains, but it's such a grind that requires a complete neglect of other characters. And I had solutions that are going to be summarized later, but we're going to kind of dive into them. Because the big thing for me, this update was great for people that already had things unlocked. If you were already a P3 with all perks, if you were already a P1, this was a great update. All your characters have everything, right? Like, all my killers have all perks, and I love it. But because I swapped from Xbox to PC, and I spent the last year catching up and building up my killers, I didn't have anything on my survivors. And now, I don't have anything on them. So at the end of the day, it's one of these situations where I find myself conflicted of I want to pour points into Deathslinger for his prestige, but I'm also doing like the Survive with Frenemies series thing, and I kind of need perks if I'm going to, keep doing well in the series. So prestiging was one of my first topics where I think the grind isn't necessarily lessened because you've increased the amount of prestiges. And I absolutely, with a passion, hate the fact that I have to pay to freaking prestige when I already went through 51 levels to get there. That's kind of my point on prestiging. We'll get to the other points that back it up, though. But what you got so far, Rhaz?
So I think for if we're trying to stay just with prestige and we're not trying to jump the gun and get ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, we'll kind of we'll sprinkle prestige, and then we can kind of jump the gun into the other categories.
Yeah, so specifically with prestige, 100 levels is fucking crazy.
It's a lot.
I mean, and you and I talked about it. Just on the prestige node itself, that level 51 single node you jump to the next prestige level is 2 million blood points over the course of 100 prestiges. That's 2 million points you could have spent on somebody else or something else. And the one thing that I will say kind of on prestige and kind of leading into other things, there's no more teachable perks, which is great. Everybody just can find every perk. What they do now is when you prestige, you just get those 3 perks on everybody at that tier. So there's no more teachable perks. You can just run across any perk from any chapter that you own anytime.
The only perks you have to buy are the common ones.
But if you like if I own let's just take Halloween, right? I own Lori, but I've never spent a single blood point on Lori. My Jeff will still find Decisive Strike somewhere because I don't need to get Lori to level 40 to find it. It's just somewhere in Jeff's Bloodwebs. But if I want to guarantee that Jeff has a Decisive Strike, then I need to prestige Lori. But if I don't want to put any points into Lori, Jeff will find it eventually. And I have to spend 0 blood points on a different character. That's great.
Yeah, then it kind of depends like which way is cheaper. Because at that point you're playing the random game. You might as well as prestige them.
Yeah.
It save you more points in the long run.
I think it depends on how much content you own. Because if I only own the Legion chapter for Jeff, and I only own Halloween for Lori, and then I just have the basic characters, I'm gonna find Decisive Strike pretty quick. But if I own all
Yeah.
24 chapters and Jeff has nothing, I have never put a single blood point into Jeff. Jesus, I could get level 2 and find it, or I could be prestige 30 by the time it arrives.
Yeah, so in a way, like, and we're gonna get to the new player aspect, but prestige could kind of be a plus or a negative for newer players and older players, sort of,
Yeah.
kind of. But we talk about prestige because it's gonna set everything else up. Like, everything else feeds into the prestige notion, right? So we'll go from the prestige and we'll talk about the Bloodweb. And I'll read you guys exactly what I said. All right. So I said, cool, we don't have to buy perks. Great. That helps some. However, the prices for add ons were not lowered. The difference in BP gained from matches is barely noticeable. Add ons need to be cheaper to truly decrease the grind. My suggestion, because I'm not going to bitch and moan if I don't give a solution. Honestly, I was saying that the add ons, instead of being 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? They should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like start at 1K, move your way up with each rarity. The RNG of add-ons is already annoying enough. For example, I rarely get Warden Keys on Slinger, and it's a green add-on. And, side note, please, for the love of God, give us a volume button for the Bloodweb. But that's off topic. But one of my big issues with the whole prestige concept is, if you're one of those dedicated players where you want to pour all your money into the prestige, then cool. Like let's say somebody's like me. They have every chapter unlocked in the game. Every chapter. They don't have every single player leveled up, killer leveled up, survivor, right? But the money that you're making from these games, which cool, they increased the cap to 40,000, right? I'm still only averaging about 32, 35 most games, and that's with 4 Eries. Like, I can't even imagine how fucking perfect of a game you need to get the max of 40. But at the end of the day, like, the money that I'm making, or the blood points I'm making from these matches, I don't feel like the grind's changed because I'm still pouring into these blood webs where the item add-ons are still the same price, but honestly, I'm making less money from a match than I used to if I threw on barbecue and chili or blood point perks or things like that. So, me personally, I think the blood web would benefit everybody a lot better if it was a little bit cheaper.
So I'm kind of in the middle on this one. If you make the add-ons cheaper, right? So talking killer side specifically, if you make the add-ons cheaper, if you run them 1 through 5,000, so your iridescent add-ons cost you 5K. They cost you what a green right now will run you. The problem becomes iridescent add-ons are game changing. All of your killer iridescents do something monumental to their power.
Mm-hmm.
Legions allow him to regress all generators at all times when somebody's not working on them anytime he's in his frenzy. Or they allow him to break every pallet that he vaults. Even Trapper, a killer who's generally pretty fucking bad, if you disarm one of his traps and you're healthy, you become injured. And his traps will randomly reset once every 30 seconds. And Wraith, until they nerfed it, his all-seeing iridescent was incredible. And the Silent Bell is still incredible. So you're going to make these things that change the game in a massive way very, very cheap. So if I have to spend 5,000 to buy an iridescent, I can run double Eries and that'll cost me 10,000 for that match. Now I play a standard game, don't do anything special, I maybe get 2 kills, and I bring a survivor pudding, and I can go into my Bloodweb and I can buy another 20 of those. Because I just have so many fucking points. My Legion doesn't need to buy perks. So all those nodes that would have been perks are now add-ons. And those nodes that would have been perks that would have forced the entity to start spawning and start taking shit away from me don't spawn. So now it takes the entity longer to start taking things from me, so I can buy more add-ons. So if you're making them cheaper and allowing me to buy more of them because I don't have to buy perks, you're devaluing the worth of each of those add-ons. Do I think they need to do something to make it so that the Bloodweb doesn't feel as oppressive? Because spending 7,000 on an iridescent add-on and 6,000 on a tier 3 perk and then 5,000 on a map offering. And yes, all of those things do add up. But if I'm just looking at it from a numbers game, if I only have to spend 1,000 blood points on Demogorgon for his best add-on, oh my god, I can stock up on thousands of those for basically no cost. And then I can run around with the best Demogorgon add-on for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so basically, like, you know, reworking the Bloodweb in some way, but still balancing out the prices where, that doesn't really happen. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be honest, though, like, I don't really see many eerie coins popping up in my Bloodweb. And when I do, I don't really go for them because I don't want it. I'm trying to spend as least amount of money as I can to get through the web, so I'm not going to go for the Eries. But obviously, I'm an outlier. There's going to be people that want that shit. But, I made like the 1, 2, 3, 4K is kind of just like a quick suggestion, but, I think reworking the prices somehow, maybe lower the prices for like the common stuff you see all the time and increase the price for the Eries to compensate. Because so if you really want that Eerie, instead of 7K, you're paying 10K. But for the other ones, the uncommon Redeemer, I can't even think of the name of the ammo belt for Deathslinger, which is the most common fucking one that pops up. I have like almost 100 of those things, right? You drop the price of that one because it's everywhere in the web. Maybe that could be like where the balance is found, where you kind of even out the numbers. Where if you really want this overpowered stuff, you're going to be spending more money for it. But at the same time, sometimes the entity traps you into buying that shit too.
I would say if we were on the old system still, where when you prestige you lose everything, reduce the cost. But now that you keep everything you've got every time you prestige, so what if you have to pay a little bit extra? I mean, yeah, it sucks that you're not getting as much bang for your buck, but it's not like these things they were cheap and now they're expensive. You're still paying the same amount, but you can potentially earn more per game and you hold on to it. So it doesn't matter if you're forced into a prestige because you'll still have those 100 warden keys. I'll still have 1,000 iridescent buttons on my legion when I get them to prestige 100. It doesn't matter because you'll hold on to everything.
Yeah, that's a pretty good counter. And this is what I like about this conversation. It goes both ways. Like, there's people that are on my side of the fence saying that the grind is still... It's better. Don't get me wrong. It is better than what it was. But it's still a grind. And I think that's where the issue's coming up from is like, and when you look at different things, so kind of tying into like newer players, right? This was one of the other topics that I had brought up. Well, people who had already been in the game that were already P1, P3, like, great. Like, we have all of our stuff. Like, honestly, killer side, I'm not worried about spending any points on any fucking killer except Deathslinger. I don't need to. I don't play with add-ons. But survivors, I gotta spend points on survivors, right? I kind of said it in here where I was like, with a constantly growing roster of characters every single year, this is massively intimidating to new players. With each added new character, the grind continues to increase for new players. And for people like me who swapped over, who still have to build up my Survivor player base, this honestly deters me from wanting to play Survivor because I don't have many perks, and as a killer main, most of my points spent on Survivors take away things from the killers. Solution, we already talked. I'm not going to mention that one. I actually mentioned like a solution of like maybe having like something like Pokemon's XP share, where you can share growth between a killer character and a survivor character. Because I mean, if you look at it right now, we have a shit ton of characters, and if you're a brand new player coming in and you want to like catch them all or unlock them all or do your best to do whatever, like it's a grind, man. In the 2 years I was playing on Xbox, I still didn't like P3 all my players. And the roster just keeps getting bigger and bigger, which means that's more blood points you're going to be spending. And going down the line, eventually, like, they got to make, like, they're going to have to keep changing it because eventually it's going to be too much.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of tying back into what I said before, they've already removed what used to be teachable perks. There are no teachables now. You just, if you own the chapter, you have the potential of finding the perk. If you want to guarantee yourself the perk, then you spend those points on that person, get them Prestige 1, Prestige 2, Prestige 3, or you use the Shrine, because they changed the Shrine as well. But you don't have to get, the chapter drops, and now I have to rush to get the character to 40, and then go and spend, 4 million blood points on my main to grab their perks. I can just buy the chapter and then spend points on my main and guarantee that all three of the perks on the new chapter are going to show up in that character's Bloodweb because I own all the other ones. And I can buy 2 of them per Bloodweb and just cycle through those webs until I get all 3 of those perks at tier 3. And I never have to touch that new character. They can just sit there and rot. I don't care. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, and I get that part of it to where, like, once you unlock the perks, that's it. The perks on everybody. Ideally, that saves you 26 killer blood webs times 50, 3 times to get all the perks, right? Like, that's a lot of fucking blood points when you think about it. 26 killers to P50 3 times to get all perks unlocked. Well, that's not even that. You got to go beyond 50 to get all perks in the old way. It's like I do get like the new way where you, like, it saves you in the long run, I guess, because technically you're not having to. I unlocked all the Deathslinger's perks. Now I'm gonna go play Nemesis and get him to P3, level 50, and then grind out another like 100 levels to unlock all the other perks that I've already got. But I need to clear his blood web of perks before I move on to the next killer to do his. So I can get that aspect. I don't know. Like when I'm 100%. I'm 100% biased. Like I'm not ignorant to that fact. I want to be able to focus on my Deathslinger and still benefit on my Survivor side. I hate the idea that it takes 4 hours a day for 100 days if I want a P100 Slinger. Because that's 100 days that I ain't doing shit for my Survivors. And as much as we play, like, I don't really play every single day like that. So we're talking even longer than, like, 6 months. Like, if I really wanted a P100 Deathslinger, it's probably going to take a year. Maybe more. That's a long time ignoring those Survivors. And then turning around to go play those Survivors and start benefiting perks. I'm biased. I hate brainstorming like that. And, the easy counter is the don't P100 Deathslinger. You don't have to. But there's a part of me that wants to, and I
have to. I'm not even gonna say don't Prestige 100 Deathslinger. What I'm gonna say is try to split your attention. Spend half your points on Slinger and half your points on Survivor. You own all the chapters, so whatever Survivor you want to be your Survivor, just spend points on that one Survivor. You don't need to spend points on the other ones because again, you can just randomly find Calm Spirit and Iron Will and Botany Knowledge and Empathy. You'll just get those eventually in that character that you want to play. You don't need to get Claudette leveled up. You don't have to spend all of that. You can still hard commit to one character and still come out on top. But if you want to have the option of opening everything, then...
Yeah. I'm biased, I'm not gonna lie. So Mrs. Last Laugh says, it should be global. Killer time or Survivor time, it should be total play time. I'm actually kind of curious.
How would you balance the points then?
Like, can you elaborate? What exactly do you mean? I actually really want to hear this concept. Still feel that the grind could be lessened slightly. And see, that's what I'm saying. I guess a little bit. Just a little bit.
I think they made a huge stride in lessening the grind.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying what they did. I think what they did was a huge jump. I think it was a great step in the right direction. I don't know.
I don't think prestiging should cost points, but everything else I'm on board with.
There's 2 things about prestiging I hate. I hate that it costs money to prestige, and I hate that you're not doing 50 levels, you're doing 51 levels.
Yeah.
Like, the second you finish 49 and you hit 50, you should be able to prestige. Why am I spending another 80k just to go spend 20k to prestige? But that's the other, like, annoying thing, too. Like, so, for example, yesterday we streamed for 6 hours. in those 6 hours, I reached about... On Survivor, I reached up to about 850,000, right? And then I swapped a killer for my last 3 games, and I maxed out the million. Or billion, right? Well, that's not the max anymore, but I got to a billion. And then I took Deathslinger, who is at Prestige 11, level 43. A billion blood points poured into Deathslinger got me to Prestige 12, level 25.
I assume you mean a million, but
Yeah, billion. Yeah, numbers, you know. The old cap.
yeah, the old 1 mil cap.
That one, 1 million.
Yep.
See, chat, y'all know I ain't the numbers guy. I'm the word guy. but yeah, so I spent the million blood points on Deathslinger, and shit, by the time I got to like basically level or prestige 12, I had already gone through almost half of them, and then the other half got me to the 20s. Meanwhile, like if you look at the old system, how far would a million blood points take you? You know, I don't feel like it's much of a difference. If I was a level 42 in the old system and I took a million blood points, I'd probably be lucky to make it to the level 20s. So it's kind of like, is there a slight difference? I think there is, but I don't think it's a big significant difference. Until you look at the long term. When you look at the long term, it's a big change. But when you look at like the right now, it doesn't feel that different. All right, Mr. Last Laugh responded. I was just filling the air while he was typing. So, I meant that the game shouldn't force you to be like, oh, well, I'm on the killer track. Then you want to play Survivor with friends, and you're like going to have to pass guys because they are too noob because I killer main. It should have more of a shared XP across either killer or Survivor. That's actually one of the ideas that I thought of. I was like, imagine if Dead by Daylight had something like Pokemon's XP share. To where if I take a killer and I pour points in this killer and I prestige 3 this killer, they're attached to this Survivor, and this Survivor also levels up with that killer. Because in my opinion, and I'd love to hear Rhaz's take on this, you know, in my opinion, because this is about where we stopped our conversation, by the way. I truly believe that if that was a thing, one, it would stop the segregation of players into certain players. You wouldn't have just killer mains. You wouldn't have just Survivor mains. You would have people who are able to play both sides because they're not in that position of, well, I poured all my time into this. It kind of makes sense for me to keep playing this. I think it would, one, make the grind a little bit better for players like us who have all the chapters and all the time. It'd be better for newer players, and it would definitely make the whole wanting to swap sides every now and then a lot better. So I think an XP share idea is pretty cool because I thought of the same thing, to be honest, Mr. Last Laugh. So I think that's a pretty good idea. What do you think, Rhaz?
What do you do for killers like Bubba or Ghostface? What do you do for these individual chapters? Or I guess paragraphs, because they're not attached to a Survivor.
And I thought
Bubba was supposed to have a Survivor, but he didn't, and Ghostface was never planned to have one.
Yeah, and I thought about that too, because like it's real easy to say like the killers and survivors who came in the same chapter would be linked, but like I don't know, maybe there's like trying to think of like a system that they could use. Maybe you can select what survivor you're linking, what killer you're linking. Because the other thing too, when you look at like the numbers, there's a lot more survivor characters than there are killer characters. So even with an XP share system like that, it's kind of like, where does the balance come from? Maybe you spend so many points on killer that it just gives you these extra points that you can go spend on a survivor that count double or do something special, or like I think I mentioned the idea yesterday or the other day. I don't know if I said it before we decided to stop the subject. But what if prestiging a killer like grants you a token, right? You prestige a killer 3 times, you get 3 tokens. If you go and use that token on a survivor, you'll automatically prestige them, or you'll automatically get to a certain level. So then you're also incentivizing the prestiging, because the more you prestige, the more tokens you get that you can go spend on another character and basically level them up, either at the same progress, or if they want to lessen a little bit, like even at, like, let's say it's half, like at least that's still helping you build up your other player side.
So if you want to do this token system, what do you do for the perks? Because your blood webs are all randomly generated. So what do I do if I decide that if I prestige Nemesis and I get a token and I go, I'm going to spend this token on Dwight. So Dwight's automatically prestige 1. What perks does he have? What did he get in those 50 levels?
I would assume like the level 1 perks.
Yeah, but what perks did he get? If I would have gone through 50 blood webs, I would have found perks like botany knowledge, or I would have found perks like, small game or lightweight. But
I mean,
how do I decide what perks I found?
you could treat it like the blood web. It's just random. If you're using a token, then it's random perks. Just like the blood web's random that it pops up. That's one way. They already got a system for it with the blood web.
Yeah. But there's choice in the blood web is the difference. I choose what perks I want to get out of the ones that are presented to me. If I just jump to a point, there's no choice.
Well,
I haven't decided on anything.
I think that boils down to, what do they call it? Where it's like risk and consequences, right? If you choose to use the token, you knowingly don't get a say in what perks are going to be unlocked. But if you choose to not use that token and do it the way we're doing it now, then at least you get a say in what perks you grab. So it's kind of like a 50-50. Like you can either do it this way and get the perks that you want, or you can use that token, but the perks you're going to get are random. And then like you could use one token, take him to that prestige 1, you have a bunch of random perks, and you're like, you know what? I'm actually going to like level him up through level 2 to pick what I want. And then you can mix match. You can go back and forth. So I think like that would just be like a risk and reward type thing. Like you're getting this really good reward, so you're not going to get to pick your perks. But if you choose the other way, then you're not going to get that super cool reward, but you get to pick your perks. A plus and a negative.
I think that also has a problem though of survivors are skins.
Yeah. Well,
Killers are actually different.
That's
Survivors
a
are
long
skins.
time.
So it's more worthwhile to spend points on a killer because there's actually something that sets that killer apart. When I put points on Survivor, I'm just going, I think this cosmetic looks cool.
Mm-hmm.
So if I level up, let's just take Resident Evil, for example. If I level up Nemesis and then I go to Survivor and I put those tokens into Claire because I like Claire, then I haven't given myself anything mechanically. I've just randomized a handful of perks onto my character, and I've guaranteed that everybody else gets gets tier 3 of Jill's perks. But if I get this character to prestige 3, then I have some random ass items, some random ass add-ons, some random ass perks. But if I'm spending, I at least get the conscious choice of every blood web. There's 2 perks out of 4 that I get to pick. Assuming you don't fuck around and spend points in the middle and lose out on your second perk. You should get 2 per blood web. So again, on the old system, I think that would have been a good idea. On the old system of prestiging, I would have liked to have seen a token-based system. On this new system of prestiging, where I don't lose anything and I go back to the small blood webs, because when you prestige, you go back to those 4-node blood webs. And then they gradually get larger as you progress through the levels again. So if I start out on the small blood webs and I get every perk guaranteed at those small levels, I would much rather actually just spend on those after looking at what I have. If I have small game and counter force, then I know that if a blood web pops up that has counter force and dead hard, I'm gonna go for Counterforce because I already have it. Whereas I would have to get tier 1 of Dead Hard and then get lucky and get tier 2 and get tier 3. But if I've already got tier 2 of Counterforce, then I just close Counterforce out completely and I never have to see Counterforce again. I've got the max benefit, and that is one less perk that I have to find for the rest of forever. Like my Claire has all the perks. So when Project W drops in September, I'm not even going to spend points on Ada and Rebecca if those are the survivors that we're getting. Because I'll have the chapter and I'll just have access to finding their perks and I'll just buy on Claire until I get them. And if that means I push Claire to the next prestige and go back to the small Bloodwebs, perfect. Because now I have to spend even less points to get those perks. So the idea of a content sharing or a level sharing would have benefited more on the old system, I think, because if you can just jump a whole ass prestige, then you get closer to the end goal, right? Of being prestige 3, level 50, all perks, building up add-ons. But now that you don't lose anything on a prestige, I don't need to jump a prestige on these new characters. I'll just spend organically.
So, so you said there was something you said, right? And this might be an understanding or misunderstanding on my part. So if I take, we'll talk my survivors for example, because I don't have any of them leveled up. So if I take Dwight, prestige him all the way to 3, right? I have unlocked level 3 Dwight perks on every survivor. Do they pop up in the Bloodweb? Because I was under the impression that once you reach P3, all those perks immediately go into your loadouts. Immediately unlocked. You don't even have to go through the Bloodweb to
Yeah,
grind out those
if they're
perks.
prestige 3, they are added to the survivors. They've just become there.
So
Like
you
I just
said,
prestige Jeff on stream,
yeah.
so he has prestige 1 across the board for everybody.
So you're saying if you don't prestige anybody, you're still finding their perks in the Bloodweb because you own the
Yeah,
character.
you have to come across them. The only benefit of prestiging is guaranteeing I have tier 1 on everybody, I have tier 2 on everybody, I have tier 3 on everybody.
And see,
You still find them.
I didn't know that was a thing because I haven't been grinding through the Bloodweb on Survivor since the update because I've been pouring all my points into Slinger, so I haven't even noticed that if that is a thing. So if that's a
Yeah.
thing, that's kind of interesting. That's news to me. But I don't know, man. Like for me, like even if I was to like redo my Quentin main, right, and I wanted Quentin to be my guy, I could see the benefit of grinding all the way through his Bloodwebs and collecting all the perks like the old school fashion way. But at the same time, it's like, what if we take us out of the equation? What if we're not trying to just focus on our main, right? If it wasn't if you weren't just trying to get Claire perfectly, and I wasn't trying to get Quentin perfectly or trying to get Deathslinger perfectly, right? The better move is still P3ing the character that you want for the guaranteed perks. But if you look at it from I'm only focusing on my main, I could see the argument of grinding through the Bloodweb the old-fashioned way instead of P3ing Jane Romero to get her perk for head on. I would just rather grind through the web till I find head on, which ultimately you might be spending more points along the way anyways. But I don't know. So can you get to tier 3 like that though? Or is
Yeah.
it just tier 1 perks?
Yeah. Because a great example, my Jeff didn't have Lucky Break at all.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were playing, I found tier 1 of Lucky Break and then Prestige 1. And then in Prestige 1, I found tier 2 of Lucky Break and I grabbed it. And I'm actually on the Bloodweb right now that has tier 3 of it. But my Yui, being Prestige 0, has not guaranteed Lucky Break on anybody. Jeff just happened to find it.
That's interesting. Because they didn't put that in like the update.
And
Like,
maybe it's like a grandfathered in thing, right? Maybe it's because we've played since before 6.1, so since I had my previous survivors at level 40 to get their teachables on Claire, that's why Claire has all perks,
Hmm.
then maybe it's a result of that. It's like a residual thing of you had the original teachable, so you can find their perks in the Bloodweb. But it would be very odd to me if they had updated the system to be you need to prestige to find the perks, and I don't have to prestige on brand new Bloodwebs.
And see, and that's the interesting thing to me, because even when we did our episode about the update and we read it and went over it and talked about it live, that wasn't in there.
Yep.
Even the video like example that they showed, it literally showed, if they literally like showed them prestiging a character and the perks unlocking on all the other characters, but they never showed going through the blood web the old way and still grinding through perks. And like for me, I didn't see it because I've only been spending points on Deathslinger since the update dropped, and my Deathslinger, he's grandfathered in. He has, well, I have all the perks because they're all prestige 3 now. But even if I didn't prestige all my killers before the update, Deathslinger would have kept all his perks because he was grandfathered.
Yeah.
So that's actually kind of interesting because that raises so many other questions when it comes to like the grind of blood points and aspects, because now I could see it going either way where like if I just dedicate my time to Quentin, then I could max out Quentin faster than I can P3 all my other survivors. But
Can I tell you what I think is the most efficient way to go through the Bloodweb now?
yeah, sure, I'm down.
Prestige 1 everybody on a particular side. Only Prestige 1.
Okay, what's the thought process there?
And then you pick your one main and you get the tier 2s and tier 3s on that one character. Because now what you have done is you've essentially set yourself up. So if like let's take our grandfathered accounts out of the equation and let's say that it doesn't work how I think it does, where you do not find perks on the Bloodweb unless you have prestiged those characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you cannot find tier 1 of a perk in a Bloodweb unless it's a common or belongs to that character. Let's just say that for the sake of argument. So then you want to get every character to prestige 1 because you want to guarantee that their perks will show up in the Bloodweb of the character that you want to play, but also you're cutting out a tremendous amount of fat from your leveling experience. If I want Dwight to have every single perk, but I need to get these other, what are we up to now, like 32 survivors or something? So I need to get these other 31 survivors and their 3 perks plus all the commons. Then if I go and I level up Claudette to prestige 1, I guarantee that Dwight has self-care, he has botany knowledge, and he has empathy, at least at level 1. But now he also has the ability of finding level 2 and level 3. So I'm front loading my experience basically, where now Dwight gets all perks. And I go, okay, cool. Well, I liked playing Dwight, but now I kind of want to play Jane. So then I go to Jane. Well, Dwight's been spending so damn long with all these fucking perks, Dwight's P3. So now Jane doesn't have to find Leader or Prove Thyself or Bond. They're done. Tier 3, they will never show up. So Jane just has those. And she has all the other perks from all the other characters. So all she needs to look for is commons and tier 2 and tier 3. And then I get Jane done. And Jane gets all the perks. And I go, now I want to play Leon. Well, now I don't need to look for Dwight's perks or Jane's perks. I just need to look for tier 2 and tier 3 and common. So even if you are a brand new account, and even if it doesn't work how I think it does, where you can just find perks because you own the chapter, you are going into this, really, like we've talked about this, the grind now is tremendous. But you are trimming the fat from your grind every time you get a character to prestige 3. And even just getting them to prestige 1, again, unlocking all those perks to be found, if they're not already able to be found, but guaranteeing that they're all tier 1 so that you're not having to look for 90-something perks cuts out a big part of the grind. That's a third of the grind. So just prestige 1 everybody, and then focus your points. Focus from there. So then you've got every perk to a minimal degree, right? But then you can specialize in that one character. And by specializing in that one character, you're being rewarded on everybody else. That's how I would run the new Bloodweb if I was a brand new account.
It's not a bad idea, honestly. It's pretty good. So, it's definitely an interesting topic. Me and Rhaz kind of came across it a while ago and realized we kind of had differing points. And so we wanted to save a lot of the chatter for here at Totem Talks. But guys, honestly, what I would like to know is like, what's y'all's opinion? If you're hanging out in chat, let us know. What's your opinion on the new Bloodweb? Do you think it's a grind? Do you think it's okay how it is? Do you have ideas maybe how to change it? If you're watching this on YouTube, then hey, comment down below. Let us know what you think. We'd love to see some of y'all's feedback. See what y'all think about some of the things I've said, some of the things that Rhaz has said, and definitely let us know. That way, who knows? Maybe we'll revisit it and do like a comment section of the stream. So
yeah.
But I do believe we should be wrapping it up here soon, guys. We are kind of reaching our time limit here, but we do have to finish up a few of our segments. If you guys weren't here at the beginning of the stream, we did do Totem Trivia with Rhaz. Rhaz has been dropping the link there in chat for you guys, and if you're watching this on YouTube, then hey, let's see if you got it right from the beginning. So, Rhaz, unless you got anything left on this last subject, we can swap on over to Totem Talks.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I think that was it. That's like I said, if I was a brand new account, prestige 1 everybody and then pick from there.
All right. So with that, guys, we're going to head on over to Totem Talks, or Totem Trivia. We are Totem Talks. I'm dumb. We're going to head over to Totem Trivia, and let's find out what the answer is to the question.
All right, guys. So again, the trivia question for this week was that Shadowborn has remained relatively similar to how it works now, but there used to be a downside, and what was the downside? So your options were you could be blinded faster and for longer, that your view was darker, that you had any aura reading durations reduced, or that your red stain was larger. And the truth here, you could be blinded faster and for longer. The right answer was A. So this goes all the way back to 1.0.0, back when the game first dropped. When you ran Shadowborn, you could be blinded 50% faster than normal, and depending on what tier of Shadowborn it was, it either took you 25%, 50%, or 75% longer for the blind to wear off. This occurred all the way up until 1.8.3, where they finally dropped that downside. But being blinded 50% faster and then taking almost twice as long to recover was horrible. All right, guys. So this week I wanted to give you guys something for the fan favorite, the old Ghostface. So back before Ghostface dropped, when he had first been leaked, they had found his Mori, and his Mori was actually different. Not super different, but it was different. So he takes the photo of the survivor, he takes a selfie. With the original Mori, it wasn't a digital camera, it was actually a cell phone that he used. And he took the photo on the cell phone instead of the camera to keep it for his weird collection that he has. And in this same vein, Ghostface is also one of only 2 killers in the game that has the ability to crouch, the other obviously being Piggy. But Ghostface's crouch, first of all, he can use it more often and it's faster, but it's also not tied into his power, whereas Piggy's crouch is her dash attack, and it takes her longer to go down and come back up. Ghostface is able to teabag. He might as well be a survivor.
All right. So with that, guys, we are going to be wrapping up the podcast. Honestly, I didn't even know that about Ghostface. I love that segment. Campfire Thoughts. Vaz said it. Raz's random facts. It's my favorite part. So,
I know a lot of random shit.
guys, we had a pretty great conversation today. I think we had some really cool subjects. This one was a lot smoother than the other ones. We're starting to kind of figure out how we want to do this podcast. So I appreciate everybody who came by. If you're watching this on YouTube at home, we appreciate you coming to the YouTube channel to check this out. If you're in chat now and you haven't gone and followed the link and subscribed to Rhaz, be sure to check him out. ! Rhaz in the chat will give you the link. That is where he's going to be posting the previous episodes if you didn't see them, along with this episode and any other future content that you might miss. And if you guys haven't been tracking either, our Survivor Frenemy series is on my channel. Episode 5 launched last Friday. Episode 6 is coming out this Friday, and the finale is next Friday. So, make sure you guys check it out. Episode 6 is super spicy, and the finale is... things are getting super hot on Survivor Frenemies, guys. So, make sure you guys check that out. If you do see the videos, leave a like, leave a comment. If you're watching Totem Talks on YouTube, comment down below. Let us know what segment you like. Let us know if you have ideas for some other segments. Any feedback's good feedback. So,
yeah, any conversation pieces you want to hear us talk about, anything like that.
Yeah, hit us up on Twitter, DM us on Discord, be like, hey, yo, I saw this. This would be so cool if you guys talk about it. Between both of us, we got a lot of knowledge about the game. We agree on quite a bit of things, but it's kind of fun when we find something we disagree on. So,
yeah.
So this has been a really fun time, guys. And other than that, guys, I like to end these the way I always do. Like, we'll see you out there in the fog.
Got that catchphrase.
I love that one. That's kind of my thing right now. So, all right, guys. See you later.
Have a good one.